All you really want is to be here with us. In your house, there is. Oh, hi Esther.
Hi Alex, what are you doing?
Well, like a lot of people, Esther, I'm catching up with some DIY in lockdown.
Ah, cool. I love your ripped jeans. Very on trend.
I taught Pedro everything he knows. Hey, Esther, did you see last week's kids vid?
Yes, I loved the kids retelling the story of Moses' early life. They were amazing. Isn't God so great that he saved Moses at the start of his life?
Just like how he rescues us. And wasn't it great how God forgave Moses for murdering that guy and gave him a second chance?
Just like how God always forgives us and gives us a second chance. My favourite bit was when God called Moses. Moses, take off your shoes. This is holy ground.
And that's just like how God calls us, isn't it? And gives us a calling. And I love the way he then gives us a job to do. So he then told Moses to go and free God's people from slavery.
Just like he gives us a job to do, to free people from wrong thinking and sin. But what happens next? Did Pharaoh let God's people go?
I'm glad you asked that, Esther. Well, I've got a special treat for you now. I've asked Lat to tell us the next part of his story. And if you watch carefully, you can see that it's not easy. It's a real struggle for Pharaoh to let go of God's people.
I am the Pharaoh of all Egypt, the Upper Nile and the Lower Nile. And if some ragtag shepherd man who used to be a part of the palace called Moses thinks that he can come in here telling me what to do, I'll tell you what I think of that. I think he's no better than a frog, no better than a bug. I wouldn't drown him in my river. I think he's a silly moo and a stupid cow, and I won't do as he tells me. He comes round here saying, God has said let my people go. I won't let his people go. They're my slaves, and I intend to get every ounce of pyramid building work out of them before the miserable people die. Well, the thing is, Pharaoh, you say that you won't listen to me, and I understand that. But I think you better listen to God, who says, let my people go. God says, you've made them slaves too long. You've hurt them and harmed them, and you've been a nasty ruler, and you've got to let them free. And if you don't, you talk to me about frogs, I'll show you frogs. You talk to me about bugs, we'll show you bugs. If you don't let them go free, then God's going to send terrible things to your country. I think you should listen to God and let him go. When I said what I said about frogs and bugs and rivers of blood, I didn't really mean it. And now that all these evil, horrible things have come to happen to my people, I have changed my mind, and I will let the slaves go. And the sooner they get ready and get packed up and clear off, the better. They can clear off and die in the desert. I don't care about them any more than I care about the Egyptian people. I shall be glad to see the back of the slaves. In fact, I think they'd better go by tomorrow morning. They won't even have time to let their bread rise before they get out. Good riddance to the slaves, and good riddance to Moses. At last, people of Israel, you who've been slaves for so many hundreds of years, the Pharaoh has agreed that God has won the victory and set you free. And tonight we'll break bread, and we won't have time for it to rise into proper loaves, so take unleavened bread, and we'll roast lamb, and then tomorrow morning the Pharaoh will let us go, and we will go out into the desert and all the way to the promised land, because God has told the Pharaoh, let my people go. And he's agreed.
What a great story! Did you notice how stubborn Pharaoh was at the beginning? He wasn't going to do what God asked him to do at all. God really had to force him to do it. God did all sorts of things to force Pharaoh's hand, like turning the water to blood and sending frogs and bugs. The Jewish people, the Hebrews, they had to put up with all these things as well. Well, most of them they did. The final plagues they escaped. The last one they escaped in quite a gruesome way. What they had to do was this. They had to take a lamb and kill the lamb, and then take the blood of the lamb and paint it over the doorway of their house. Like that. every house that had the blood painted over it, the disaster would pass over. Death would pass over every house that was marked with the blood of the Lamb. And so, the Hebrews called this time Passover, and they celebrated it in the Passover festival each year. Jesus said that he was the Lamb of God, and that he was going to need to die to save us from death. His blood would be over our lives, just like the Lamb's blood was painted over the doorway of the house of the Hebrews. He would save us through his death on the cross.
The night before he died, Jesus was celebrating Passover with his friends. They had the special Passover meal, and then Jesus told them that he was the Lamb of God, and that by his death they would be saved from death. After supper, he took his cup and said, "This is God's new promise to you, his promise of life. Each time you drink from the cup, remember me and how I am the one who rescues you." Let's do this now. Jesus, thank you that you are the Lamb of God. Jesus, thank you that you died for us. Jesus, thank you that you rescue us from death like you rescued the Hebrews from slavery. Help us to remember you always, and whenever we eat bread or drink from a cup, let us remember you. Hope the painting of your shed goes well, Alex.
Thanks, Esther. Well, next week we'll find out what happened to Moses after they left Egypt. It wasn't over with that evil Pharaoh yet. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Esther.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
week. See you next week. Bye.